One of the best ways to improve your eye for design of any kind is to look at good examples of it, whether it's art or sculpture or whatever, architecture. And that holds true for landscape design as well. The more you look at great landscaping, that the better your eye gets, and you're able to easily distinguish between good and bad landscaping. Good landscaping is a matter of harmony, both in proportion and in color and in size. They all have to hang together. And the examples I'm going to be showing you on Lido Key as we're driving out to it now, one on the north end, and the first one we're going to see is South Washington Avenue, which we're coming up to now on St. Armand's Circle, are examples of that. St. Armand's Circle was settled in the 40s, so there are a lot of, older lots there with big trees, just like in Pelican Cove. And what has happened, those lots were not that expensive, and the homes weren't that expensive. They were built there in the 40s and 50s, but those prices have gone up, and waterfront is at a premium, and there's no better waterfront homes than those on St. Armand's Circle and in Lido in general on the bay. So we're going to go down South Washington Avenue, which is the first real left you can make, and we're going to show you some of those. And it's a nice, this on the right is not on the water, but in keeping up with things. They have some nice landscaping, rather formal. Here's one that's slightly less formal, and very close to the kind of thing you would see in the original Pelican Cove landscaping. You notice that there's a harmony to it, and the harmony comes from groupings of different types of plants and from some design. It usually goes from lower to middle size to larger plants, or it forms a triangle of sorts. We're seeing some of that happening here. Don't let the big ostentatious homes fool you. If you just replace them in your mind's eye with the Pelican Cove condos, you'll see some very close resemblances to what the original Pelican Cove landscaping was. This is not great landscaping that if I'm looking at now. There are some homes that have not been rebuilt, so it's the older 50s landscaping that was done either by the gardener or by the construction people. Here's one that is it's okay. It's a little too formal for me, as is this one here that was built on the bay. Again, it's a little too formal. It has harmony. It's a good landscaping, but it's not close to what we have at Pelican Cove. Although when you start to look inside some of these, they may be formal on the outside, but if you stop the car and look inside, you'll see that they have the same less formal landscaping that is popular in Pelican Cove, which is also a mixture of formal and more natural looking landscape. You notice there's a profusion of different types of plants, but they're not higgledy-piggledy put in. They're put in so they're grouping together. You can see that grouping right here is a nice example, somewhat formal, but it works because they keep changing. There's 3 or 4 or 5 different kinds of plants here in a kind of formal entrance, and we're kind of moving rather fast now. There's a large hedge, so we can't see inside. These are all waterfront homes. The nice thing about this is my driver was driving a little quickly, but you can drive very slowly on the streets. There's very little traffic on them, and you can get a good chance to look inside. You'll see right there, you can see a very good example of how informal inside that the plantings get. So it tends to be a little formal, and then it gets more informal as you go in. You can see that right here as we look at the entrance to this particular set of private homes. It contains 2 or 3 private homes. This is not great landscaping. This is pretty bare. It's a lawn and a couple of trees and some flowers, and there's no lushness to it. And lushness is the key to landscaping. All right, we're at the end of South Washington Avenue now, and we're going to make a right. This is a good example of what St. Armand's looked like back in the 40s and 50s. You can see that the landscape was put in probably by the contractor. It's very bare, a couple of trees here and there, whatever, a couple of edges. It's nothing at all. It was not done by a landscape architect, or it was done by the local maintenance gardener who kind of mowed your lawn, but it gives you some idea as to what the original properties were like. This is one of the internal streets. I wanted to show it to you because I wanted to show you high hedges. Those don't belong in Pelican Cove. They block the view of the rest of the landscape, but here people use them for privacy. And okay, so we're finished with St. Armand's, and we're going to go out towards Longboat Key. This is just a visual reference, so it'll help you if my maps confuse you from Google, but they're pretty good maps. Just head out towards Longboat Key, and just before you this road goes, you're pretty straight, and then it takes a right, and it then goes on to the out to City Island and to the bridge. But just before that curve takes place, there's a beautiful neighborhood where some striking new homes have been put up. There's a lot of money been put into this neighborhood. Again, it was an older neighborhood. You can see the difference between the older homes, their landscaping, which is kind of done by your maintenance gardener and by your construction people, and when the homes were much less expensive. And you can see what's going on the water, which is on Westway Drive, which you have the map there. Anyway, just give you a little visual reference, and we're kind of approaching. It's a kind of tricky left, so but there's generally little traffic out here in the evening, and I like to drive here sometimes around 6:30, 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's nice. The light is low, and the traffic is very light. But these homes, there are some striking modern homes, as well as the Spanish Revival homes that have been built here to replace the older ones. And again, the lots have huge trees on them. These were settled back in the 40s and 50s. Okay, so we're going to take a little left here, and this left is called Morningside Drive. And when you look up, it's the first left turn you can possibly make. And you can take a look here at the homes. Some of these homes have been upgraded, some are the original homes. The landscape design is not particularly interesting here. There's a whole lot of it has been homemade. Some like this are interesting, they're kind of overgrown, but that's a brand new home too, by the way. It's not on the water, so it's not the extremely expensive homes that are on the water. That in fact the wealthy always have a landscape architect. We can afford them here to review or design things that are particularly difficult because we're splitting the cost among 750 condo users, and we're doing very small lots, probably 1/20th the size of these home lots. We don't do a lot. You can see some of the bad landscaping there, and here again this is the street called the Morningside. It's older homes, and we're kind of driving slowly. I had my driver drive a little slowly here so you can see that these again were probably done by the people who built the homes, and there are some new homes like this which aren't particularly well done either, and they probably had the construction guy brought in his own landscaping people and they did some work here. I'm not particularly happy with that. It's kind of kludgy. Just some big trees were way out of proportion. The thing is proportion from small to medium to large to bigger. Here's another one with kind of minimal. It wasn't done very well with some ground cover that doesn't look very good. And then, again, a new modern home. And then there's a couple of empty lots. And this on the right appears to be a new home. It's not particularly good landscaping. There's a nice big fence and everything. And here's a new home that took the shell way out, which is not a bad look. That's not a look we have in Pelican Cove, but that's a look that can be very attractive. Well, we're finally getting down to Westway here, and we're going to make a little left. Wanted to show you, on the left are 2 or 3 homes, which are quite large with huge lots that would be the size of probably a good 6th or 7th of your Pelican Cove. And you can see the variety of plantings and how harmonious they are. They start from the grass up to the smaller flowers, up to the smaller shrubs, up to these smaller palms, and then the deciduous trees. It's slightly formal, but look at the size of the trees. Again, we're looking at these lots are very old. They go back to the 40s and 50s, and I look at the variety of plantings that we have here. It's lush green. There are green flowering plants of all kinds and trees, and you notice how things are staggered: grass, then smaller, then larger, then smaller trees, then larger trees. It's a way of staggering things that is very pleasing to the eye. So anyway, we're going down the road. We're now making a right basically and heading down a little bit. Here's a home with a large wall around it, but it has some wonderful plantings inside, which you can see when there are breaks in the walls. I love the bougainvillea, which we should have much more of in the sunny areas of Pelican Cove. But here with a break in the fence, this again is a huge, huge lot with big old trees and of course a brand new supersized house that you can see in the background. But you can see the variety of trees, both tropical and deciduous, that are planted on the lot. I had the driver stop here so we could get a little look at them. The wall's a little bit more formal than I would like, but again, the inside, when you see the inside of these, you see just how green they are and how varied they are. The trick in good landscaping is to have a lush feeling without it being crowded. A pretty good example there. Again, some more bougainvillea. This is a lot you like to walk up to the fence and take a look inside and see how they've done it. But you can see the very tops of the trees, and you can see how tall the old palms are. I'll give you some example of how old that lot is. Here you can see inside it again, many different shades of green backed up against each other. So even though the outside wall is formal, you can see from the inside it is, and there's an old banyan tree. They worked everything in this lot. It's really quite large. It's a palace, really. But if you took the palace away and you put down regular macadam roads, you'd have pretty much what Pelican Cove looked like originally. And that's the look, I think, that is the look that most landscape architects who have any kind of eye try to duplicate. And again, it's a kind of lush feeling in which plants are staggered, not thrown willy-nilly all over the place. We have a little bit too much of that in Pelican Cove. It wasn't like that originally. It's a landscape that's made to look natural, but it's planned out and thought through. And you can see some more of the variety of plantings behind this huge wall behind you. This itself is an instruction on how to landscape something. It's worthwhile just getting out of your car to take a look at. So when you come off the Morningside and make your first right, you'll catch this home. Now here's another home. It follows the same kind of procedure. It's a huge home, huge gate. Again, you can see that inside that there's lots of original trees have been kept when they built the new home. Again, these homes were very small originally in the 40s and 50s. You can see me motioning with my hand there. And again, you see how the plants are staggered up, small, little bigger, bigger like that. You can keep going up and down like that, like waves, you know. There's a way to do it. But the thing is, it's thought out. It's not just an afterthought. And here you can see a very good use of crotons as a second belt. They're cut back, they have enough sunlight to grow properly, not like in Pelican Cove where they're sticking up like aliens from outer space. You know, there's a way to do it. There's a way to use crotons. It's quite beautiful, but you need a good landscape architect to plot them out, make sure they get enough sunlight, and that they're staggered along with the other plants so that you had a richness of color behind the green, and it goes back to green again, then it starts to grow up into the tree. So that's a pretty good example of how you could use crotons. We haven't used them that successfully here because we didn't have a landscape architect, but that's a pretty good example of what you could do and how they should be planted. And again, this is late in the afternoon. During the day, these guys get sun, so they're full and bushy. Crotons are full sun plants, and so are Thai plants. They need 8 hours of sun, 6 minimum. You know, that's very important. So I wanted you to take a little look at this to see how those plants can be used in a harmonious way with the original landscaping. And that original green landscaping you see both before and in back of the crotons is much of what was like in Pelican Cove when it was first planted, and when it was planted again in 79 and 80 by two very good landscape architects. Graduate landscape architects, you know. So anyway, we're going to go past this. That's a good idea. I think that gives you a good idea of how to do that kind of thing. I wanted to show you this house on the right. This again is not on the waterfront. I don't know when it was built, but it's not in the same class as the houses on the waterfront. And it was obviously landscaped by someone who really didn't have any idea of what landscaping is all about. The trees are put in higgledy-piggledy. There's no orderly progression of small to large. You know, it doesn't have to be like soldiers in a field. It's just that you keep that progression going, maybe in waves, if you will, you know, depending on how big your lot is and as to where the homes are, things like that. But it's very important to keep it lush and natural looking, but at the same time, make sure the colors are harmonious, the different types of plantings are harmonious. This is a house on the right I wanted to show you. It's not greatly landscaped, but the Royal Poinciana tree is just simply gorgeous. We should have more of these in Pelican Cove, as well as more of the purple jacarandas. They're simply gorgeous plants. But the Royal Poinciana grows well here. They're all over Siesta Key, and here's one that's existed out on LIDO Key for I don't know how long. It kind of blooms in the springtime, and it's just simply gorgeous. We're back looking on the left now on Westway, and here again is these walls, of course, are what people want for privacy, but you can look at the staggered plantings here, starting with the grass and then the hedges, and then some palms, and then some bougainvillea over it. You can see it on the other side of the gate too, how varied it is with some of the ivy, which we could use a little bit of that too. Some more of the bougainvillea and a kind of serpentine-like hedge is nice. Anything that is varied. That's a little formal, the serpentine hedge, but you can look inside and you can see here it gets a little bit less formal. But when you look inside these lots, you'll see again that it has a lot of the informal look that much of Pelican Cove does. And your Pelican Cove around the clubhouses and around the pools and the tennis courts is a kind of formal, not overly formal, but it has a kind of formal look to it, which is what the original architects wanted, and it makes sense there. And then it gets wilder as you get into the wilder areas, and that's what happens in these homes. Even though that they're large, ostentatious homes, just remove those from your eye, and you'll see what Pelican Cove looked like back in '79 when I moved here, and for many, many years. Those are huge trees. Those are 40 to 50 years old. Those trees, 60 years old. And again, that the walls prevent us from taking a look inside, but that's okay. I wanted to show you that these have a lot in common with the plantings we have here in Pelican Cove. When you look inside, you're going to be surprised at how wild and how irregular the plantings are and how really beautifully they're done. Here's the next house on this road. Again, it's a little formal. They have their fences up. That's the way you would do it if you have a large private home. I like these big walls when I have a private home. I have one in my house in Mexico, and it gives you some privacy, and it also gives you some mystery to your home. The thing I wanted to show you is how varied the plantings are here. Even though it looks like a formal home, the old Spanish Revival style, it has a variety of plantings on the outside. You can see how they kind of pop up with the pillars, and inside there's many different colors of bougainvillea and trees, both fir trees, so to speak, and tropical and deciduous trees. It's a nice job. Here's one of the very modern homes that in fact its landscaping is not like Pelican Cove. It's clean. Wants that clean kind of look, so it has that clean look. It's okay for that type of home, but that wouldn't fit in Pelican Cove. Here's another kind of Spanish Revival home. It's brand new. All of the landscaping is new. You can see they have some Florida native plants put in there. They mix very well with the original lush planting. A little too formal inside for my taste, but in fact the outside is done very nicely. We travel a little further down. Here's a very good example of staggered shrubbery. Gets larger and larger and larger until they get to the larger hibiscus tree there, but with all kinds of palms. There's a variety there that I think is what we're after. It's a little formal. That can be broken up a bit, but you see over on the right it's broken up a little bit better. Again, these homes tend to be a little formal on the outside, so that you have to understand that that's their entranceway, and they wanted to be that way. They paid a lot of money for these houses, but the landscape architect made sure that it had that tropical feel and that everything fit into place, and it wasn't just thrown there like a bunch of plants. Some real thought was given to it, and some taste was given to it, which is really the most important thing, isn't it? We're going on now, but I just wanted to look back and show you how nicely layered this house is that we just looked at, because we just saw the other side of it there, just as a reminder how things can be done. This is when we turned the car around and we went back, I wanted to show you some of the lush bougainvillea. Again, it's something we should be doing in the sunny areas and how it adds to the dense green here. You see how it all works together after a while, and it can take any particular form that you want. I'm just going back down. Here's another home that's very nice. It's very colorful. It's a very formal white fence and things like that. But what you can see is that how dense and how beautifully layered and how different all of the plants are and how they progress one into the other. I think that's what the original landscaping was like. It's got a little scattered now. Here we see the nice use of crotons, you know, how they're used as a backup color, things like that. So you get some idea of how lush this particular area is and how the trees were huge to start with, and the landscaping is just spectacular. Even though it is a little more formal than we would like sometimes at Pelican Cove, the idea is the same. It's very easy to adjust this to a more irregular landscaping, if you will. Okay, so we're now leaving. Don't let the bad landscaping that you're going to see as you go back onto the main road, both to the right and left here, is the original landscaping, and in many cases it's horrible. Once you've been down Westway, you've seen how lush and green and how staggered and how proportional things are in color and harmony of shapes, then you can see why this is not good landscaping. It makes you feel horrible to look at this stuff. As we approach the main road on the left, there is a nice example of really good staggered lush landscaping. It just gives you a reminder of how great it was to look at this stuff on your Westway. So I hope you drive out here often and you take a look at it. The more you drive, the more you see of the good landscaping, the better your eye gets.